Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of History in the Dark. I know this is a bit sooner than I usually upload, but I figured be a bit more proactive with this channel. I like doing these videos. I like talking about this stuff, and I like learning things. And if I can spread the knowledge to other people, hey, why not? But this particular topic is actually sourced at a I assume subscriber. I don't know if he subscribed. Did you subscribe? You better have subscribed. Look at all these Patreons. Look at all these channel members. This kind of content is only possible because of them and generous viewers like yourself. Also, it's okay. You don't have to do that. But, it'd be cool. But, I'm going to say gentlemen, I assume. Maybe it's a lady. Maybe it's a girl. I don't assume anything anymore. They're gonna come out and be like, I'm neither. I'll be like, that's fine, cool for you, fam. I don't even care anymore. This person goes by the name the Brantford Railfan, and they posted on my last video about CPR 694, and they would like me to discuss another CPR steam engine known as 3512, which was a 280 steam locomotive. And I had never heard about this one. This was new to me, so I had to do a bit of research to figure out exactly what engine this was and what happened to her. And I found a story that I don't think is quite as mysterious as 694, but I still think it's worth talking about because it's an interesting one. And there might be more information about this engine in the future, given what I've learned so far. As I already said, this is another engine belonging to the Canadian Pacific Railway, and this was an N2. N2s could be classed under A, B, or C. I couldn't quite figure out exactly which one this engine was. 3512, the information about this engine is very scattered. But I know it was an N2. N2s, like I already said, are 280s. Steam engines, again, fairly small, but not the worst steam engines ever. Certainly quite the opposite. They were pretty reliable for their size. But towards the end of their life, some of them started being rebuilt as 282s to try to help them pull larger trains. But some of them, such as 512, were never remodeled. But to be fair, it kind of went away before it could that could happen to her. Now, the actual date of the incident is a little dubious, and I figured out why pretty quick. Because some sources say it happened in 1946, some sources say it was in 1947. However, the only source to give me an exact date states January 1st, 1947, which means that this happened on New Year's, or very close to it, which would explain the differentiating dates involved. So we're going to say around New Year's, 1946, 1947. Either way, this engine was on a barge on Slocan Lake. Slocan Lake is a lake in British Columbia. It's one of the deepest lakes out there, and barges were sometimes used by railways to move their trains. It wasn't always economical to build rail around usually smaller bodies of water, just because of the extra expense in laying the rail around it. The Great Lakes are so big that barges, and there's so many stops on them, that doing a barge on the Great Lake, unless you were going directly to the opposite lake, it wasn't necessarily reasonable. It made sense just to build around it. But on a smaller, regular lake like Slocan, a barge is a bit more economical because you can stop the train at the coast. You can, it can wheel it and its cars on the barge, move it across the lake, and then it goes on its way. And nothing, no problem there. Except there was a problem that day. What happened was, some sources say the barge in question was leaky, which is dubious at best. I can't quite confirm that was the case. But whatever happened, the barge that the engine and several of the cars, including a snowplow, were on, began to list heavily. Now, nobody died during this incident, which is fortunate. I can actually kind of joke about it now, because there's no deaths, no loss in terms of mourning or anything like that, no mystery here, because there were plenty of witnesses to what happened. The barge tilted over, and the engine, along with its tender, caboose, and a snowplow, went into the lake and down to the bottom. Now, beyond the potential leaky barge, or the fact that maybe there was some weight distribution problems on the on the train itself that could have been also part of the problem, there wasn't much in terms of investigation that I'm able to find, because everyone kind of knew what happened. Nobody died. There were no deaths to worry about. It was just a loss in terms of product and, a train. It was gone. It was a tax write-off, basically, at that point. Which is unfortunate, but, it happens. But I think we should just smile, and this is a little bit of a happier story than, the last one where 3 people died. This one, nobody died. But 3512 is still on the bottom of Slocan Lake, and it has been located. I was unable to find any real footage of the wreck itself, but based on the pictures and witness accounts that I'm able to turn up, the engine is still in remarkably good condition, probably because, unlike 694, which slammed into a rock slide and then probably slammed into the cliffs on its way down into Lake Superior, 3512 just went straight in the water, and it's a deep lake. It's about 600 feet down. So it would have hit pretty hard, but beyond that, would be otherwise fairly intact, and it is, for the most part. Currently, there's a film crew working with witnesses, as well as planning to go down and get some footage of the wreck to do a documentary on the loss of this particular train, which I actually am incredibly intrigued by. I hope it turns out well, and I hope they have great success. One thing I'm super excited by is that they were able to interview the only surviving crew member to this date. By surviving, I mean, not dying of natural causes yet, because this happened in 1947. This gentleman is 97 years old. But his name is Bill Chapman. He was the brakeman on board that day, and they were able to secure an interview with him and discuss what actually occurred, and I think that would be super interesting. But because they're still working on the actual documentary, they haven't actually disclosed any real details about that interview as it stands right now. The only other thing is that there has been discussion among some rail fans that I'm able to turn up regarding the potential to raise this particular engine, because 3512, unlike 694, is in extremely good condition, all things considered. Again, it's a freshwater lake. It hasn't been down nearly as long, and in some of the pictures I'm able to find, you can actually still see some of the letterheads. Like, it's in much better shape. But I need to stress at this time how hideously unlikely that is to occur. The reason for this is twofold, but the first one is financially. Even if it's in good shape and the raising goes off without a hitch, it's in very deep water. This is going to be an expensive task. You need heavy lift equipment, you need a bunch of people who are certified, trained to deal with this kind of salvage operation, and then in terms of getting the investment in, what kind of return could anyone expect? Why would we be raising her? And the easiest thing would be, a static display option. But a static display is never going to be worth nearly as much as it's going to cost to bring it back up. And running operation would require years of additional work on top of, just restoring the static display is one thing, but actually getting 3512 to run again, that would take so much effort, and no one would be willing to invest that kind of money when there are other examples of her type of locomotive still in restored and some in running condition. The other problem is that there is an issue involving safety. Largely because 3512 is intact, there is the concern about her boiler. We don't exactly know what's in her, and there's environmental hazards to consider, whether it be asbestos or any other such gunk that could be, inside this train. Because the boiler hasn't been opened, it's intact, the chances of a pressure change causing a rupture is not impossible. meaning there's a major safety hazard here for all involved, whether it be just the environment of the lake or the people doing the, bringing the train back up. So basically what I'm saying is that's not going to happen. 3512 will likely, much like 694, stay exactly where she is. I would love to see, someone bring up a piece of her, perhaps the bell or the whistle, like people usually like to get. But outside of that, I can't imagine the train ever being brought back to the surface wholly. It's still an interesting story. Believe it or not, through my research, I discovered there are a lot more trains underwater in places than you'd think, so if you'd like to hear more about any of those, or any other topics involving trains, or even beyond trains, I love airplanes and boats as well, other such history topics, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video to really get me rolling down the tracks, as it were. I just lost like 15 subscribers from that joke, but it was so worth it. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.